Hello, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a quick video on VueFire, Ionic Framework, Capacitor, and Vue.js. This is a simple to-do app that I built. It's real-time. I don't know if that really matters, but it's a real-time app using VueFire. I'm just going to walk through the code, give you my thoughts on what I think on VueFire and when it's a good time to use it. So please, and also I'll release all the source code so that you can look through the source code yourself and make your own opinions. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Please share with your friends, and let's get to it. So here we are in VueFire, and I think the important part of VueFire is so let's just get back to the home page. It's idiomatic composables for real-time data and other Firebase services. I'm just going to get this out right up in the beginning. This VueFire, the VueFire Auth does not integrate well with Ionic and Capacitor because there is no way to set the persistence to the index database, which is what you need for this to work on Capacitor. Sorry, this is what you need for authentication to work on Capacitor. So the only thing that I am using VueFire for in this example is just working with the database collection because I cannot authenticate through it using the VueFire Auth. So that's the key thing to remember. VueFire Auth will not work in Capacitor. It will only work in the web. But you can manage authentication yourself using the Firebase Authentication framework, which I think is perfectly fine. I think it's gotten way better than it was in the past. So what I've done in this example is I manage my Firebase Auth using the Firebase API, and I manage all my database interaction using VueFire. And I think it's a decent compromise, and it all does work. So the important thing, because they tell you right up from jump why you should use VueFire, and it's all summarized right here. It's all about real-time bindings. If you don't need real-time bindings, then to me, the incremental benefit that you get of using VueFire isn't worth it. Like, you can use the Firebase APIs. I think they work perfectly fine. Even if you want to, you can create a couple of composables yourself to manage it. But unless you're really trying to do real-time binding, I don't really see a big upside for it. Maybe someone else could kind of share with me what the upside is. And I'm coming from the place of the challenge with it not working on Capacitor for authentication, so I got to use Firebase anyway, Firebase APIs anyway. And then to say, well, my real big benefit I'm getting out of VueFire is real time. If I'm not doing anything real time, then I don't really need it. And so I honestly just would not use it. But I just wanted to put this out anyway. And like, if you read through this guide here about why VueFire, he makes a compelling case here. When you look at all the code you have to do to manage and support real-time activity, yeah, there's a lot of comments in here, but it's still like, do I really need to do all of this to get real-time? And then when you look at how much less code that it requires right here to get a collection and to have it updated in real time, it's pretty, I was about to say, it's pretty fucking amazing. So I strongly encourage you, if you're looking for real-time support and you understand that you're going to need to manage your auth separately, then, take a look at VueFire. It'll be awesome. Okay, so next, I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough of the code because I don't want this video to be too long, so let's kind of get to the code. Okay, so here we are with the code. This is a basic Ionic Vue.js project that I created. And the best place to start is usually right here in main, so we can see any changes that were in main to get this going. Also, just to let you know, all my Firebase credentials are set up in a .env file, which is how I'm getting everything in here. Let's remove the VueFire Auth because we don't need it. Hold on, let's walk back because I don't think I've walked through the app with you. All right, so this is the app running on iOS. I have the ability to kind of filter the tasks based on all completed or in progress. So we get the completed ones, we just see the in progress ones, and we can just go back to all. I have the ability to toggle the I didn't want to get too crazy. I can toggle the status, so you can see I'm toggling the status of whether it's in progress or completed. I'm keeping track of the last updated value, so you can see the time there that is getting updated. And so and also I'm not doing anything to update this list. This is the real-time value that you get with VueFire. It's updating the list by itself. And the other thing is, of course, you can add a to-do. This just added this new to-do down here on the bottom, and then you can edit a to-do. So click edit, kind of disables most of the screen. Probably should scroll to the top. A new to-do was changed. Update. And I go down and you can see a new to-do was changed. So this is basically the app. All right, now let's go back to the code. Okay, so this is from the default Ionic blank app sample. We have a couple of things going on here. So I've imported VueFire. We have our normal create app. Here's how we kind of load the VueFire plugin, and I'm passing in my Firebase app, which I'm getting from my Firebase service, which I'll hop to in a minute, and then we fire up our router. Let's hop over to the Firebase service. Firebase service is pretty straightforward. You load up Firebase as you normally would with the initialized app. You bring in all your keys through .env. And then here's where I'm handling the authentication issues. So authentication can work on device. And so if it's running on capacitor, then I need to set this persistence, otherwise it won't work. If it's not a capacitor, then I just get my auth the normal way. I export my Firebase auth. I export Firestore so I can get access to my database. And then this is just an easy way to keep track of my collection, so I don't have to duplicate this code everywhere I want to get my collection. So I'm exporting a ref to my to-dos collection. Okay, so we did do main. Main makes sense. And then we are going to jump to app, since that's the next thing. And in application, actually, all I'm doing in app, because I didn't want to go through the whole hassle of building a login UI. It wasn't the objective of the application. This actually all started out with just me seeing if there was any other way I could get VueFire auth to work, and I could not find it. All right, so what I'm doing here is when I mount app.js, I'm checking for my auth state change. If I don't have a user, then I'm just logging in with this test user that I have. If I do have an existing user, then I just resolve this promise with the user, and then the app keeps moving. And what it does is we hit our router, and if we go to our router, you can see that our router just has one page, which is called home, and then we redirect to our home page. And the home page is kind of where everything is happening. And I did, pull out a couple of components, but the bulk of it is happening in the app. It's usually best to, let's just walk through the home page from the top to the bottom. Oh, no, we'll walk through it from a feature perspective. All right, so the first thing is, how the hell do I get my to-dos out of my database? And this is all the magic right here. You call use collection, you provided a query, and this SSR key, what was happening is I was getting this bizarre error that was popping up. Even though I'm not running this server side, it's just a regular application, it was complaining, or it was throwing a warning about the SSR key. And I fumbled through the code, and it said somewhere in the code that you can just set SSR key to false if you're not doing any server-side rendering. So I just put this in here, made the warnings go away, but does require a little additional, research to figure out why I even need to do this when I'm not running an SSR. So that's that. So this use collection is really all it takes, and what this will do is, as needed, it will update the result set, which is in data, which is the document ref that I'm rendering. And then it'll also throw any error right here, reactive error, if any of the operations fail. So let's just walk through how that's working. So I'm getting my collection and I'm rendering it. And so let's explain what's happening with the query. So with the query, I need the ability to show all in progress and completed. And so I'm dynamically changing this query value based on, let's go back, based on the user selecting what they want here, right? So what I've done is I've created this map, and this map has a key of all, incomplete, 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 incomplete. And then what I do is I create the query object based on what type of query you want to run. And then based on your selection, I get the query from this computed variable based on the map, and I take your value from the select option. From the select component. So let's hop up and take a look at the select component. I tried to put as many comments as I could here, and so we have the select component here. This disabled computed value to do. If there's a to do that you're editing, then I basically disable all the components except for the edit components. All right, so this is the Ion select, and as you can see here, the select returns the value of all complete or incomplete. And then what I'm doing is I'm saving it in this vModel, which is associated to selected query, and selected query is this ref that can only be if all completed or complete. And so once select query changes, I get the computed value from select query, which is once select query changes, it updates the query because it's using the value from selected query to identify which entry in the map I want to use, or basically which query. It sets that, use collection, recognize that there's been a change, it queries the data and gets me the new data. So that's how I'm able to get multiple queries based on changing that select box. All right, let's look at how we do a new to-do. So up at the top here, I have this Ion card. This Ion card here, which has a save button and an input field. And if I look at the code here, this is shown when I don't have a computed to-do. Because basically computed to-do is I'm holding the to-do that I'm about to edit. I could probably name it better, but that's basically what it is. If I'm going to edit a to-do, I shove it into computed to-do value, and then that kind of changes the UI. All right, but here I don't have a to-do to edit, so I'm just trying to create a to-do. So here's the UI for my to-do. I'm keeping a model. I have my click to add. You enter your text. As you enter your text goes into this to-do model, which is just a string. And when you click add to-do, it fires an event, and that event is handled by this add to-do. This is all pretty straightforward Firebase stuff. This is a set doc and a doc. I'm pulling in my to-do collection reference that I created when I set everything up, and then I'm just setting the values on it. I'm getting timestamps for created and updated. I probably should be using server timestamp. I'm going to tell you that now. You should update this to server timestamp, not use your local device, but server timestamp. I'm getting the string from my to-do value. I'm setting completed to false, and I'm calling set doc. And then when I'm done, I'm clearing out the value. Probably should wrap a try catcher on here to display any errors. Just a recommendation, but I'm not handling any of that right now. So now it sets the doc, but once again, because of the reactivity of use collection will automatically get updated, and then we'll see the new data on the screen. So that's the add to do. Let's look at some of the components that I created. So if we look at so this is the list component. So if I have any data, then I call my to-do list, and I'm passing in data. I have an event handler, which listens to if someone clicks the edit button. It fires off an event, and then I handle that edit event here. And then once again, I disable this whole list if I am editing. So let's look at the to-do list. I'm not going to talk too much about the styling. I'm going to focus more on kind of the content. So I wrap the list, as you can see, are basically Ionic items with 2 buttons floated to the right. And so let's see how we created that. So we have our Ion item at the top. I wrap everything in a label, and then we go through and we create so the first row is the name, apply some style. I have this to do completed, which basically toggles a text that is rendered based on the value of the flag. I have this fixed date time because, as you know, time's coming back as a timestamp, but I want to change it to something that's more readable. And then I have this event to toggle status. This is just showing an example. So I wanted to show how you can manage the events inside the component, and then you can also kind of fire off events and have an external component manage them. So for the toggle status, that is being handled internally. So you can see just on a click, I call my function toggle status, and I call my update doc. Once again, this is in VueFire. This is just basic Firebase. I get my collection, I get it by the ID, and then I just toggle the value for completed, and I set the updated value. You can see here I'm using the server timestamp. So this is an example of me handling the event internally. And then if we look at this edit button, this emits an event called edit with a payload of a ToDo object, which is the ToDo object associated with the line that you clicked on, or the row that you clicked on, and it fires an emits event. You can see here I'm using this define props and define an emit style. So this is basically saying I have an event with a name of edit in it, and it has a payload of ToDo. These are my props that showing I'm passing in my data. I'm passing in data, and I'm passing in whether or not it's disabled. When the user clicks on this edit button, it will emit an edit event, and it will have a payload of the ToDo that was clicked. Let's touch on a fixed date time here. All I'm doing is if there's an updated time, I show that. If there isn't, I show the created time. And then all I'm doing here is getting the date and then converting it to a local time string. But let's focus on I think the last thing left to talk about here is this emits event. So when I emit this event from my list, it gets picked up by home. So you can see home here, this says it's listening for the emit event. It's listening for the edit event to be fired. And when it's done, we call this function handle edit event. If you scroll down to handle edit event, as usual, I could do some checking into payload, but I don't. But what I'm doing here is I'm just getting a copy of this. And the reason why I'm getting a copy is if I just assign the payload to EditToDo directly, as you make changes to EditToDo, it will update the value in the list, and that's not what we want. So I'm taking a copy of that by getting all the payload and making sure I get the ID also, assigning it to this new value EditToDo. And so now EditToDo value is set. And if we look at my computed, well, not my computed, yeah, I have another one up here. Computed ToDo value, it gets triggered by the fact that I've set edit ToDo value. So now computed ToDo value is set, and if we scroll up to the top, if computed ToDo has a value, then we hide everything else and disable it, and we just enable this top part. And you can see that in the UI. If I click on testing iPhone edit, you can see how everything's grayed out except the top here that I want to edit. And this functions the exact same way as the create ToDo kind of did. It has an input box and some buttons for actions. I'm just going to click cancel here because we don't want to change anything. If I go back here, you can see that I have a component here called EditToDo. This computed ToDo is the value that gets passed in, so it knows what it's editing. It's really just a string. And then on the update, I have a function called handle update ToDo that gets called when an update event is fired. If we go to my ToDo component, structured similar to the other one, we have where's our emits events? We have our props, which is our ToDo that's coming in. Here's our emits event. We fire an update event and we pass a payload when needed. This is a little bit different because this is just basically we're taking in the text and we're saving the text in EditToDo. If you want to update, then this update ToDo has a cancel flag. And so you can see on update, the cancel flag is set to false. On cancel, the cancel flag is set to true. And if you look in the code, if cancel, clear out the edit value so it doesn't show up when you come back to the page, and just fire off the update emits event with no payload and exit. But if you are going to edit, we fire the update, we send the payload, we clear the local value, and then we come back to home. And you can see in home, on our EditToDo component, we have this update listener. So we listen for the update event. We come down and here's the handle update. If we had no payload, we just bail. There's nothing to do. But if we do have a payload, then we just update the document similar to how we updated the status, but here we're just updating it using the payload name. We get the ID so we know which object to update, and then we update the server timestamp because we changed the object. And that's it. So you can see that the only place I really leveraged VueFire was for the real time of this collection. And since we've been talking all about the real time, let's actually see it in action. So let me hold on a minute so I can get the mobile app and a website up at the same time. All right, so you can see here we have the version of the app running locally here on a website. I've just shrunk it down to make it look the same. And just to see the real time, this is the mobile app application. So I'll go over here and add new mobile task. And you can see add new mobile task appeared on the bottom. Oh, I have to change this to show all. But once I show all, you can see the add new mobile task. Let's do something else that doesn't require me to kind of click around that much. So if we come up here to the top and you see we have test 1 is completed, and if I toggle the status here, in progress, you can see test 1 switch to in progress over in mobile. And if I toggle it again here, it switches over. So it's doing the real time, and you saw the code. I'm not doing anything to kind of handle this myself. If I go in here and I edit it, test 1, edit, update, you can see the change is test 1. So it's happening in real time all by itself. And I think that's it. Take a look at the sample code. Share your thoughts with me. Check out VueFire. It is pretty awesome if you're looking for some real-time support, and let me know if if there's something that I missed in it. So thanks again. Please make sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, and I will see you next time.